Hello, and here we are today building this Slave I, and it's a 1:160 scale model by Revell. So you can see it's all painted up there, but in this part 1, we'll just be building the model. I decided to split the video into two parts just to make it easier for creating and for viewers as well, perhaps. So there we are, there's the box, and we're going to unpack the box. And we should find our plastic bits and pieces inside the model kit, obviously. So there we are with the instructions and the pieces. Just sorting everything out. There's a transfers there. I didn't actually use the transfers on this model. I don't think they'll be missed, and they're so small, they're really fiddly to put on. I'm sure the purists will complain about me not sticking the transfers on, though, but there we are. So this will just be an interpretation. Well, the paint job will be an interpretation. I haven't got that totally accurate, I don't think, but I used a variety of reference pictures to try and get the colours right. So anyway, onto the model here. So we're selecting the parts, and we're starting off with part 7, filing it down, file down the pieces. We got several parts here. Part 7, like we said, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, which is the rocket boosters, which need assembling and gluing together. So how I did this, I was kind of suck it and see and making it up as I go along, and some parts I just got ready and set aside so that we can assemble them into the main spaceship as we go. So there's the rocket boosters, which are a bit of a pain in the ass to assemble, fiddly. I think I dropped them on the floor several times. There's a gin and tonic there just to keep you going. There are quite a few making this model, and I had a little bit of a hangover the next day. So we're assembling, we're cutting out some more parts there, and we've got part 10. So filing them down, and we're also going to select parts 8 and 9 and 11. So this is like the kind of wing assembly thing, which kind of look like pedals. Sort of pedal wing type things. Of course, anybody that's watching this video is going to be familiar with Slave I and the Star Wars films, I would imagine. So gluing those in place after we filed down the flash from the parts. This is a bit of a fiddly bit as well. This is kind of mechanical, so you can, if you get this right, the wings actually move once you've assembled the model, so you can put them in any position you like. So I got a couple of, or a peg there, closed peg just to hold the pieces in part. We've got them glued down, and proceeding on to the next stage, which is parts 12, 14 and 13. 12, 13 and 14 in order. So that's just the other side of the wings. And the same process again. So anyway, sort of making this video, I'm kind of bumbling my way through, but if anybody else is going to make this model, it might come in handy for a rough guide. So we've got another base part of the spaceship there, which is number 15. Just using the magnifying glass there to show you Boba Fett. He's absolutely tiny, really small, as you can see. Can hardly see him. So we're getting the cockpit, or his chair inside the cockpit, ready there, and we've got the cockpit ready also, and that is numbers 16, 17 and 18. So we've got 18 as the main cockpit, 17 as his control panel seat area, and 16 Boba Fett himself. So just fixing those in place. I actually paint the cockpit in this video, and the main painting will come in part 2. So painted the cockpit, so it just makes it easier. Paint the cockpit and just stick it inside the main spaceship. So there is the main body of the Slave I, which is numbers 19 and 20. So once we stick those together, we stick the cockpit in between the two sides, or the two pieces there, as you can see. But we haven't put the cockpit in place there. It's just getting ready, just preparing the windshield. And that will be the piece that we put in right at the end, even after all the painting is completed. So here I'm just getting the paint ready to paint the cockpit with Boba Fett inside. So what I've done there is just watered down some black acrylic paint just to create a wash. We just go over the whole cockpit, Boba Fett and his seat, and just build up a few layers just to kind of give a worn look. You could spend some time doing some details inside the cockpit and on Boba Fett, but for me it's too small to paint, and you kind of don't see much once the windshield's put in place anyway. So I just sort of kind of suggested details with the black wash, so it kind of looks like a silhouette when you look through the cockpit via the windshield at the very end. I think doing this video, I think I need a new pair of glasses as well, so I'm going to have an eye test soon. So just gluing the sides in place there, as you can see, with the cockpit inserted into the middle. And just wiping away some surplus glue there, or excess glue. So now the wings are ready. Taking the pegs off, fixing in the boosters in the bottom of the ship. Fiddly little job. This was a fiddly job all round. I mean, I made a TIE Interceptor this time last year, and that was a lot easier. The Slave I was quite a little bit of a challenge, I suppose. Harder than the TIE Interceptor anyway. So they were assembling the wings, sorting out where that's going to be inserted, and that's inserted between the two base plates of the ship. So you've kind of got like a mechanical feature there where you can move the wings, which I think I mentioned earlier, which is pretty cool. And just fixing the underside there of the main part of the Slave I, and there's two guns there which fix into place, and they can move around as well, as they just sit between those two parts, as you can see, and they can just spin round. So those two guns are just one piece with like a pole joining the two guns together. You can see there's a stand there which is handy, so we can show that off at the end. That's straightforward, just two pieces to stick together. And there we are. There's a spaceship ready for the next stage, which is painting the Slave I ship. So there, that's the spaceship with the finished paint job, or my interpretation of the paint job. So there we are. So see you in part 2 for the paint job. So here we are again on part 2 of making Boba Fett's Slave I, the Revell model kit, and in this video we're going to be painting up the model. So here we go. So as you can see, we got the finished model there without the windshield on it, and we've mixed up some black paint. I'm using acrylic here. I use acrylics. I don't use, I don't use proper model paints. Acrylic seems to be okay, and you can seal it at the end if you want to. I've not had any problems up to now. I'm just a mere amateur feeling my way through. Anyway, as you can see there, we've watered down a bit of acrylic paint, and we're putting some washes into the mechanical areas of the spacecraft. So I'm just applying the washes with a paintbrush, as you can see, and then wiping off with a cotton bud, or Q-tip, as you might say in America. Using a combination of Q-tips, cotton buds, and tissue paper. So just kind of building up the layers. You want to put the layers down relatively thin as not to ruin the detail, and you get a better coverage of paint also. Probably mindful to point out the acrylic paint, some colours don't seem to create a good solid base, so maybe in the future I'll look into some more suitable model paints. But so far so good. Not any problems up till now, and you can always get over problems as and when they arise. So continuing applying the washes there and getting the black wash into all the details and leaving the highlights exposed by using the toilet paper, tissue paper and cotton buds. I find like using the washes, you get a nice result, bringing out all those details. So there's the stand. I'll probably paint the stand up at some point. Stand comes in handy for this particular model for painting as well, so you can just hold the stand. So I've got some reference pictures there. My interpretation of the colours isn't exact, and in places, say for instance, like the wing arches, they sort of look like wheel arches. I think the green is more of a sort of khaki green, army green, and I applied the green maybe a little bit too dark. So back to where we're painting, I'm putting a dark grey over some of the body parts there at the front. I'm going to put a dark grey stripe along the back as well, and I think I painted the guns in the same dark grey. So I'm also using the instruction book as a colour code reference also, along with the photographs. So I've checked out quite a few photographs. There seems to be quite a few differences between photographs, the actual instruction book, and researching how other people have painted this model. I put a red detail on the top here. We're mixing up some red now, so I've mixed up some red and darkened it with some black to kind of give you that sort of blood maroony looking red to paint around the base of the spacecraft Slave I. But I also painted on the top with this red, but I noticed in a lot of pictures the top bit was painted in the green. I decided to go for the red anyway. And there are people out there that will pick up on all these details. When I did the TIE Interceptor last year, somebody knew all about the engine and everything, but I don't go too deeply into it. Although I wouldn't mind buying those books. Haynes have published some manuals where you can like get manuals on TIE fighters, X-Wing fighters, the Millennium Falcon, and Haynes is actually not too far from here, only about 3 or 4 miles from here, and they make books on cars, engines and all that type of thing. So anyway, we're applying the green now to the arches, and I probably went a little bit too dark, but I mixed up some green with some white and a little bit of yellow. Actually, the concoction I just described there is for the main body of the Slave One. The wheel arches was a green mixed with a bit of black, but like I say, my green was probably a little bit too dark there. I just painted some details on the side, some panels, and painted in red there. And that's the red I was talking about on the top. You want to try and get your lines nice and straight. So I had a bit of a shake, probably too many G&Ts, but I got a little bit of a micro shake anyway when I'm doing models. Get as close as you can as possible, but all's not lost if you do have a little bit of a jiggledy line, because we will apply a wash over the top of all the colours to give that sort of worn, used look, and that kind of blends in the colours anyway. So now all we're doing is going over the paint, just applying some more layers just to solidify the colours. And when I put the first coat on, I did actually wait a day and let the paint dry before applying the successive layers. You see the wing arches. Dark grey parts. I did actually use a hairdryer as well between coats, because when we get around to doing some weathering and some wearing looks, you want the paint to be totally dry, because we'll be using wire wool, some fine wire wool, and I also used a knife to scratch out some wearing on the body of the spacecraft. So as you can see, the wings move, so that works where we built the model in the first place. And the guns move as well. Got a bloody cough there. So got a little bit of yellow there just to touch up around some areas of the mechanical parts around the spaceship, including the boosters underneath the Slave I, II. Like I say in the first video, I think there's some transfers that came with the model, but I didn't use them. They're very small, and I didn't think they were too important to apply on this particular model. But again, the purists will probably tell me off for that. So now the model's dry after applying those coats of paint, and I'm using a small craft knife just to scratch in some scratches on the Slave I model, just to give a bit of battle damage and all that type of thing. And we're using the kind of a fine grade wire wool over the top of the paint, just to give it that worn look. So I do that all over the model, but I'm sort of mindful of where to put the wire wool onto the spacecraft, looking at pictures and all that type of thing, trying to get as close as possible, but obviously it's not going to be totally exact. So after we've done that wearing and weathering, we're applying another wash of watered down black acrylic paint, and we'll do the same as what we did at the beginning of the video, is to apply the wash and then wipe it off with some tissue paper and use Q-tips also. I'm using dry and wet tissue paper sort of alternately as I go through weathering the model. So on the underside there, as you can see. Just wiping some of those details out with the Q-tip and the tissue paper. Got a bit of a heavier dose of black there as a wash. Getting into all those nooks and crannies. Where the paint may dry out a little bit too quickly, you might want to do the washes in sections, so wash on and wipe off. Sound a bit like the Karate Kid there. If you go too heavy, you can sort of touch things up as you go. Just speeding through the process there. Just applying washes and using the wire wool. And there we are. Job done, and all we need to do is stick on the windshield and we're ready to go. So just glue in the windshield. Or space shield. So just applying the glue there with a knife. My glue dispenser messed up, so I was applying the glue with a knife there. And there we are, job done. Ready for a lift to Bespin. So there's the model completed. I think it didn't turn out too bad. So that's it. That's the end of this series with Boba Fett's Slave I. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and over and out for now.